Well, well, well. Season 7 of VDL is on the way, folks. It is very soon. We're in the 24-hour grace period right now, and I just want to say I'm happy with my team right now. I got a couple potential trades that I might want to make during the grace, but on the whole, I mean, I'm not trading, most of these mons. So let's just talk about it, man. It's a great team. I'm really excited to try it out. My starting point was Ferrothorn. I am a huge fan of this mon, and I wanted to make a team that could support it going into the draft. So, obviously Ferrothorn is a mon that wants basically two things in terms of infrastructure. It wants good trick room potential, because its 20 base speed is going to be most effective under trick room, I'd say. But also you want some form of protection from fire types. And so the sort of trio that I wanted to grab outright, and I did, was this Politoed, Ferrothorn, Gothitelle. Politoed and Ferrothorn go well together because Politoed sets the rain and reduces the fire damage that Ferrothorn takes, basically making it just a regular super effective move. And with Ferrothorn's bulk, it really appreciates that, Ferrothorn can really tank fire attacks under rain. Slap on maybe even an assault vest onto it, and you're sitting pretty, right? Another thing is I wanted to make sure that Ferrothorn was the only mon on the team that really needed this much investment. I wanted to make sure everything else sort of just like naturally fit into the team and didn't really need too much to succeed. So he's kind of my high investment mon in the team, right? That's kind of why I didn't want to take Pelipper over Politoed. Pelipper is a mon that obviously also has a 4x weakness to electric, and I just wanted something that I could use to set the rain very consistently, and I feel like Pelipper is just not as consistent as the Politoed. Now, kind of a funny point is that for the exact same amount of sort of like points investment, I could have had this combo last season, right? Ferrothorn in Tier 1, I completely overlooked it, right? Ferrothorn in Tier 2, I'm like, okay, let's draft Ferrothorn and Politoed. But it's funny because Politoed was Tier 2 last season, Ferrothorn was Tier 1 this season, so it's literally the exact same combo. It's not like I got any more value out of it just because Ferrothorn moved down a tier. But, it's just kind of an interesting thing to think about, I guess. So Ferrothorn, Politoed, very good combo for that reason. And then the reason I wanted Gothitelle, so not only am I interested in Gothitelle for the specific advantages it brings to the trio, but also like I'm a player, I think, who really benefits from having a flexible mon to lead with. It's also kind of why Salazzle's on this team as well. So Gothitelle, let's go back in history for a minute and look at UGA Season 2, where I drafted Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan was basically a mon that I brought to every single game and allowed me to succeed really well. And that's because it was just such a flexible lead. You throw a Choppleberry onto it, or like a Choice Scarf, and it would just do stuff. It would be a very consistent fake out, couldn't be faked out in its own sense. So, I wanted something like, I recognize that for myself, and I recognize that I really like having flexible leads that I can sort of like have a lot of options as to what they're going to do. And, kind of use that as leverage against my opponent to try to like have that sort of kitted out to be, kind of an answer to whatever their potential leads are going to be. I think Gothitelle does that really well. Gothitelle has so much diverse lead potential, right? It has 3 different abilities, all of which you can use. It has Frisk, allows me to see my opponent's items, always super consistent and nice. Has competitive, which deters people from bringing Intimidate against me, and from, recklessly spamming Snarl or whatever. Like I could run a weakness policy competitive Gothitelle at some point, and if someone hits Snarl into me, they're just going to be very sad. And then, of course, there's also Shadow Tag, which, was an ability that people, I guess, wouldn't use too often, I'd say. I think it's one of those abilities that you need sort of the right team with, but since I'm picking Politoed with Perish Song, Shadow Tag was a natural fit for the team as well. So I think the Shadow Tag plus Perish Song combo that a lot of people are going to be probably kind of scared of when prepping against this team, that was just a nice little cherry on top for the already wonderful synergy that this was bringing. And of course, Gothitelle is a really good Trick Room setter, and that's something that Ferrothorn really wants. So altogether, I wanted those 3 mons, and I got them, and I think they're going to perform really well for me. After that, one mon that I really wanted to try to fit with this team is, with Gothitelle on the team, you definitely want to have a good core for the Gothitelle, right? If you want it to succeed, you're going to want a good Dark type. And I was looking at Mandibuzz, and Mandibuzz is obviously a really bulky, good mon. I kind of wanted Tailwind as well, because a lot of the mons that I was looking at were going to be kind of in the mid-speed tier, and then you'll see that I had a lot of, just look at them there. They're all kind of middling speed, except for, the Salazzle and the Rapidash, and the ones that are on the slower side, like Ferrothorn. But everything else is like, 80, 70, 60, pretty much. So I wanted Tailwind, and Mandibuzz was cool, but at the other side of it, I was a little actually inspired by Goomer's never picked Mon sort of video that he did, and he was talking about Vullaby. So I went and checked out Vullaby on Showdown, and I saw it basically just had everything you'd want out of Mandibuzz anyway. It gets Tailwind, it gets Snarl, gets Foul Play, gets Roost, gets Taunt, gets a couple other things. And, with an Eviolite, and I'm not, obviously I don't have a different Eviolite user, so you can always pretty much run it with the Vullaby. This thing is just hella tanky, it's got 75 base defense and 65 base special defense. Slap an Eviolite on there and you're pretty much, I haven't done the math on it, but you're pretty much as tanky as a Mandibuzz. It might even be tankier, honestly. With Roost, that's just going to be devastating, I think. So, I think Vullaby is going to be a surprise to some people. They might look at it and think, okay, what is that Vullaby going to do? But I think Vullaby can actually do quite a bit. And with Foul Play, too, Vullaby can really punish a lot of mons that want to kill Gothitelle, right? Gothitelle is slightly less defensive. It's more specially defensive, so even at 95 base, which is like very strong, people are going to want to use physical coverage against the Gothitelle. They're going to want to hit it with strong bug moves. They're going to want to hit it with strong dark and ghost moves. And Vullaby can really punish those mons since they'd be more physically offensive. And pairing with Luxray, who is the Intimidate, those are kind of my 2 physical answers, I'd say, which is cool, as well as Beware with Fluffy. Let's talk about Beware for a sec, because I'm actually really excited to use this, and this was a pick that I hadn't anticipated picking before the draft started. Because I was shopping around for a good normal type, good fighting type, and I was kind of looking at Dubwool at first as a tier 5, because I kind of made the realization, I never really thought about it, but Fluffy is obviously very good in rain. It gives you that fire weakness, but it's kind of mitigated by rain. So I figured, okay, Fluffy can work. And I was looking at Dubwool and I was thinking about it, and then I was like, who also has Fluffy is Beware, and I going going before this draft, I just never really thought of a good way to run Beware. That Beware is kind of like one of those mons that you're like, okay, yeah, it's there, but there are better fighting types. There are better normal types for the most part. You can get a little bit more value out of them. It's not really, doesn't really have any priority moves. You know, it's not really enabling a whole lot. And its speed tier is just kind of ass. But, you know, with the Volibear, with Trick Room, Beware can do something, right? And especially, you know, if you can get it in rain where it's going to be neutral to fire and also, you know, taking half damage from contact moves, I mean, this thing can be insanely tanky. So who cares about speed at that point? I mean, that's my kind of, if you guys knew, you know, my team last season, my ethos is that speed is, you know, just a social construct. You just, you know, if you can tank stuff and you can trade back effectively, that's all you need, really. I think Beware can do that really well. I mean, this mon can hit like a truck. It has 125 base attack. It gets 120 base power moves in the form of, you know, double edge and close combat, both of which are going to be stab. But it also gets a ton of like utility, and it gets a ton of, well, I won't say utility, but it gets a ton of coverage, right? It can hit a lot of different things. It has play rough. It has drain punch for some more sustain. It has, you know, most of the punch moves. And I also love that it gets unnerve as well, because, you know, sometimes I can bring it and it won't even be weak to fire. It'll be just, you know, neutral. And, you know, if you're trying to run like a sun team against me, or, you know, trying to get rid of my range somehow and use fire moves against me, like, Beware might just be running unnerve anyway, and not care about that too much. So I'm really excited to use the Beware, and I'm glad I kind of stumbled into it. I'm really excited to see what it can do. Poltegeist is another mon that I'm pretty excited about. I also didn't really think about it too much, but, you know, I wanted a good special attacker for the team. You know, the first 3 picks that I was grabbing weren't super like offensive, right? Gothitelle, Politoed, Ferrothorn. Yes, Ferrothorn has Iron Defense Body Press, makes it super physically offensive in that sense. And it has like good moves like Power Whip and stuff for stab, and Gyro Ball, which can, you know, pop off because it's so slow. But like, you know, it wasn't like the immediate damage that I'd want out of something. And Beware kind of fit the physical side of it, and Poltegeist kind of fit the special side of it. What I like about Poltegeist here is it does give me that upfront damage, and I'm the type of player who will want to do some setup with it sometimes. You know, I like the fact that it gets Shell Smash. I like the move Tea Time. I kind of want to mess with that to see if I can do anything fun with it. But also I really like this weak armor ability as well. I like the fact that is one form of speed control that I can use to really just blow stuff up. You know, just something to enable, you know, if I can use Salazzle with like, I don't know, Fling or something to enable Poltegeist with like a weakness policy or something like that, boost its speed up. It can really kind of destroy stuff. And I'm not really super much of an aggro player, but like I feel like I definitely have aggro options here, right? Same with the Omastar with weak armor, right? You get that sort of aggro potential, but also with Omastar, you are getting Swift Swim as well, which is really nice. You're able to leverage the fact that even though it has like a 4 times weakness, it's got an insanely good special attack stat as well. Less than Poltegeist, but still very good, and 115 special attack. It also gets Meteor Beam, right? So you can run like a Swift Swim, Power, or Meteor Beam set and get a lot of value out of the Omastar. So those are kind of my special attackers. Salazzle can also kind of be a special attacker. The main reason Salazzle for me kind of worked for this team is, right, if I'm going to be running Rain most of the time, I want my fire type, if I am going to draft a fire type, which I did want one, I want it to be doing something, right? other than potentially doing fire damage all the time. Salazzle's already super frail, right? So it doesn't matter to me too much with Salazzle if it's getting hit in rain, because it's generally going to die anyway, right? Rain or no rain, if you're hitting with a water move, it's probably going to go down. What Salazzle brings, though, is a lot of utility. And when I decide not to run rain, Salazzle has a lot of burst in that sense too, and you can kind of throw people off with it. So I really love the fact that it gets, really good poison coverage. Can definitely run that in rain for sure, and have it be very nice against fairy types, which my team does have sort of a negative matchup into with, 3 weak to fairy. I think Lullaby, Beware, and Gudra are all weak to fairy, and I only have a couple resists in the form of Salazzle and Ferrothorn, right? So I couldn't get that to be coming out 3 and 3 because I combined my poison and fire type into the form of Salazzle. But being able to be an offensive threat to fairy types is nice. But also, it gets fake out, gets breaking swipe for some damage control. It can do some really cheeky stuff with eject pack, right? You can run Oblivious Salazzle with eject pack and overheat. Oblivious making it impossible for it to be intimidated, so you won't be able to proc the opponent won't be able to proc the eject pack earlier than you'd want it to most of the time. And you can just run overheat, switch into your Politoed, switch into your you could run like Politoed and Salazzle turn 1, and you can Perish Song and overheat into Gothitelle for a free switch there, and your opponent will be sad because they'll be trapped now and won't have expected it necessarily. Of course, now that I've said that, many of you will be thinking about it, so maybe I just want you to think about that. So I don't know. The mind games. But so that's all really good utility there. And like I was saying, I really wanted my fire type to give me utility, right? I didn't want something that was going to just be hampered by rain, and I think Salazzle fits the bill pretty nicely. Then I was thinking about possible dragon types, and I was kind of debating between Kingdra and Gudra for a tier 2 dragon type, because they were basically the ones that were still open at the time that I was kind of thinking about moving on to picking my dragon. And as much as I like the fact that Kingdra gets its Swift Swim, I'm not a huge fan of Kingdra's stat line, honestly. It's just a little bit underwhelming at times, and I think it doesn't meet certain damage thresholds. What I love about Gudra is it surpasses Kingdra in both attack and special attack, so it's a good mixed attacker, and I really love its bulk. Like, again, I'm the guy who wants to have a Mon that can trade effectively, and Gudra does that really nicely. I like that it gets Sap Sipper. I don't have a ton to enable Sap Sipper, but I still think that having a nice grass immunity is nice when I'm running Politoed and Omastar. So having that as a good switch in is really nice. But it also gets hydration, which if I'm running a physical set in rain, I'm not going to have to worry about Will-O-Wisp too much, right? I mean, obviously you can Will-O-Wisp me and maybe reduce my damage for that turn, but as soon as the turn's over, that burn gets removed, and you're gonna have to choose to take the full damage from Gudra next turn, or you're gonna have to choose to Will-O-Wisp it again, and all the while you're losing tempo by doing that every single turn. So I think it's pretty good in rain as well. And Gooey is also a solid ability, honestly. It's one of those that can definitely surprise an opponent, make them upset about what they were going to do. So I think I've pretty much talked about everyone except for Luxray and Rapidash so far, so let's talk about those. Those were my last couple of picks. And, well, Omastar was my last pick, but I was kind of knowing that Omastar would likely be open by that time, so I was happy to pick it later. But the picks that I was sort of like struggling with, right, was the Rapidash and the Luxray. Now, I kind of wanted Alchemy for my tier 3, and it was open for quite a while, and I just didn't end up picking it fast enough, unfortunately, so that was sniped for me. And when it was sniped, I was sort of like, okay, I have some fairy backups. I was thinking of maybe instead of Gudra, I could pick, I could pick like Aromatisse in tier 2, and then like for my tier 3, I could pick something like Haxorus or something. Like there was some options there, but none of them were like particularly good, and I wasn't really happy with many of the options. So, Rapidash I ended up picking because I was like, well, okay, I need a fairy type for the team. I like the fact that it's got some good physical offense in the terms of just 100 attack. I like that it's faster, on the faster side with 105 speed. Sort of like now I got 2 Mons that can break 100 speed, and I think that's very helpful in a lot of ways. It's a Mon that I have some interesting ideas for that I'm not going to spoil because I think that they're going to be pretty strong in certain matchups, and I don't want people to prep for it. So I think Rapidash, as much as I'm like not 100% happy with it, I'd say I'm like 90% happy with. I think it can do a lot. It does give me like an outstanding ghost weakness right now. So like obviously I'm weak to ghost with Gothitelle, Poltegeist, and Rapidash. And I only resist it with Beware and Vullaby. But I'm not too worried about that. I think you know, I have enough there to deal with it. And I like the fact that Rapidash gets a ton of different coverage options as well. It's got like ground coverage, single target ground coverage, which is also great. You know, it can do a lot. So I'm mostly happy with it. And there's also matchups where I'm going to want a Trick Room with it as well. So it's nice to have a second Trick Room option for the Ferrothorn if Gothitelle for whatever reason isn't the play. I also have Trick Room in Prison with it, so, you know, it's a very fast Trick Room in Prison that I can use potentially as well. And then the Luxray was a pick that I was, you know, I'm always hesitant with Luxray. Luxray is one of those Mons that whenever I see it with last season as a sort of exception to that, I tend to find that it flounders a little bit. Chad used it insanely well, and it made me think that maybe I could, you know, give it a shot again. I was happy to pick up an Intimidator. I was happy to pick up a Mon with 120 base attack, who, if you're running Guts, can be immune to you know, the fire penalties, right? Or not the fire penalties, the burn penalties. So that's cool. Rivalry is also a fun ability to sometimes just slap on there and see, you know, if against certain matchups to do a little bit extra damage. So I'm not like unhappy with it. I think I'm kind of in the same place with Rapidash, maybe like 85% happy with it, just because I'm skeptical with it. You know, I want it to work, I really do, but I'm just a little bit hesitant. But, of course, you know, I think Luxray provides so much in terms of damage control as well, being able to have Snarl and Intimidate. And it's a decent pivot Mon, right? And there's a decent amount of, like, pivoting that I want to do with this team with the Politoed, right? Like, if I'm up against a different, you know, rain setter, or, you know, I want to preserve my Gothitelle, Luxray, like, you know, is a pretty good switch in for it. Like, if I'm running, like, Perish Trap, right, like, there's going to be a turn where I'm going to have to switch out both Gothitelle and whatever's next to it in order to, you know, preserve them from dying to Perish Song, and Luxray is a good switch in. So overall, I think Luxray fits the bill, but it's, you know, it's a little bit more frail than I want it to be. And I don't like the fact that it's only sort of like fighting move is a superpower, which like is going to reduce its stats as well. So yeah, it's okay. It's okay though. But yeah, so that's the team, and overall, I think hopefully it does well. I'm very optimistic about it. I think like this is definitely a team that is very fitting to my style, and it has just a ton of utility. I felt like I got really good value out of every single tier, and with that, I hope everybody has a good season. Please let me know what you think of my team. I'm really curious to see where it's ranked in the power rankings, where people think about it. And yeah, I hope y'all have a wonderful day and good season. Much love to all of you. Bye bye.